You might know me. I'm a cannabis lawyer named Tom. Been in the industry for a while, at least since Illinois started 6, 7 years ago. Been a lawyer longer than that. And I'm here today to discuss something that everybody's aware of now. I've been discussing this for years. I started doing my first hemp is legalized shtick back in 2019 because of the THCA loophole. That blew up with the video. Today, we're going to do a very detailed deep dive and analysis of what the new hemp laws will mean for your company. And so please do give us a like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you think about it. We're going to do a full deep dive into it. I'm going to give you analysis from my read of it to say what's it mean, but it's only 5 pages. It is a full redefinition of hemp. People say that they have 365 days. Next year is an election year, and safe and sound banking principles. Before, I've been a lawyer for a while. I was a bank lawyer for a decade before I got into hemp and cannabis, not really into hemp at all since they went marijuana on us about 4 or 5 years ago. That's going to end, and this will hurt for the people that are in it. I am sorry that you guys did this. You ran into a business model predicated on loophole, saying that it was intentional. As a lawyer, I have Rule 1.2D. I'm allowed to advise clients regarding how to be legally compliant with cannabis laws and apprise them of the federal law. And I would apprise them that what they were doing when hemp was a loophole probably isn't legal. Other lawyers didn't see it that way. Let's just get into the details. I don't need to pontificate. Let's hit what has now been signed into law, passed in the Senate, passed in the House, signed by Donald Trump, who many people were giving credit for legalizing hemp when he signed the 2018 Farm Bill. Coincidentally enough, I believe it also stopped a government shutdown. As we can see, it starts up here on page 129 of this. Now, the Senate passed what they call the minibus, and the minibus included 3 full-year funding bills. This was one of them. This was the Ag 1, Section 781. And it says effective 365 days after the enactment of this act. So that would be November 12th, 2026. Now that means that everything's good for a year. No, banks have been lending. They have not had to do the FinCEN guidance from 2014. It costs our dispensary, and we found the most reasonably priced one that specializes in this. Let me know if you want a referral in the comments. But they charge us $400 a month, and it was a $500 application fee just for treasury services. No e-com, no lending. Safe and sound banking principles are going to be at play during this 365 days because it's not just loss that a bank can call your loan for. It's perceived risk of loss. In your loan documents, there might be like a material change of business climate default. Many of the loans that are in the hemp industry probably have that lender insecurity default. If you are a hemp company, maybe you have a beverage line and it was quite expensive, and you have a line of credit or something, that'll probably get called well before 365 days because they want you out before they would have to be banking a MRB, a marijuana related business, a tier 1 MRB. That would be a plant touching business. Now we're going to see in the next section how most of the industry, except rope and fiber and the hemp parts that I put on my cereal this morning from Costco, they were still made in Lithuania. Maybe that will change in the future, but let's get into the new definition. And so now it's very similar. However, they have included THCA. So with a total tetracannabinols concentration, that is also different. And that will integrate with a provision of the law later on that we will discuss regarding the FDA, this tetrahydrocannabinols concentration. And it includes THCA of not more than 0.3% on a dry weight basis. Inclusions, exclusions. This is brand new. And these exclusions that we're going to get into next. Of course, first, the THCA is going to be gone. And as we get down to the FDA thing, we have a new definition of the tetrahydrocannabinols that will spring into effect in approximately 90 days. Let's get into the exclusions. Hate this one. Seeds. Frickin' heck. How are you even supposed to enforce that, right? A seed's a seed. And again, like a seed weighs like 1/100th of a gram. Oh my gosh, I got caught with 1/100th of a gram of marijuana. So I don't see how they're going to enforce that. Other stuff, this is where it gets like worse. Any intermediate hemp-derived cannabinoid product. So before, with the creative reading of the 2018 Farm Bill, people thought that while in processing, if you go hot, that's okay, provided that you fix the delta 9 THC level by the time it hits the shelf. Now that's like expressly excluded, intermediate hemp-derived cannabinoid products, right? And so what are these intermediate hemp-derived products that are specifically excluded? Cannabinoids that are not capable of being naturally produced by the plant. That's going to be in the list that the FDA is going to be creating over the next 90 days. For example, this would be Delta 9 or Delta 8, or maybe even Delta 10 THC. Delta 8 and Delta 10 are made in trace amounts naturally, purportedly, and were synthesized or manufactured outside the plant. So you took the CBD isolate and then you turned it back into Delta 8 or Delta 9, or more than 0.3% total THC, tetrahydrocannabinols, including THCA, and any other cannabinoids that have similar effects. Again, that's going to get into, as determined by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. And then they also have any intermediate hemp-derived cannabinoid product, which are marked or sold as a final product or directly to an end consumer for personal household use, or these are all in the alternative. So that means each one of them is illegal or not hemp. Hemp will still be a legal, unscheduled substance, but all of these are exceptions to that. Any final hemp-derived cannabinoid product, this is another new term of art that we will go over later, containing cannabinoids that are not capable of being produced naturally and were synthesized outside the plant. So, hemp-derived D9, most of the stuff that's in those beverages, like 80, 90% of it was CBD when it started, and then it was turned into Delta 9. And then, or greater than 0.4 milligrams combined total per container. So like each one of those beverage containers now could only have 0.4 milligrams. It's kind of like non-alcoholic beer now. A container of THCA or any other cannabinoids that have similar effects as determined by HHS. What genetics can you even grow? As soon as you start processing it, it goes hot. Okay, it says 365 days, but if you are running a hemp processing business and you have a loan, the bank should look at this and be like, oh no, that's marijuana. Call their loan. Or write them a letter saying that this is a default. We will work with you to find you a new bank or to get you out of here before it becomes effective in 365 days. And that is fascinating that this is what's happening. So it really is just going to be the plant. There evidently are some genetics that are out there that are pure CBD ones. For example, Tatanaka Pure, evidently that's supposed to be always less than 0.3. The genetics are going to change. Are those genetics out there? Do you know of any? Leave it in the comments. Okay, now to one of the inclusions, industrial hemp, that is specifically included. They've created a whole new version of hemp to really achieve the goals that they had back in 2018. They wanted a lot of this stuff, hemp that's grown for the stalk of the plant, fiber, or any other non-cannabinoid mixture, preparation, or manufacture of such a stalk, or the plant that's grown for whole grain, cake, nut, hull, any other non-cannabinoid mixture, preparation, manufacture the seeds of the plant, for example, those hemp hearts that unfortunately are still made in Lithuania, for the purposes of producing microgreens. This is interesting. Is that where the loophole is going to go? I don't like that about hemp. I don't like how a lot of the actors in the hemp industry were always just looking for how they could push a loophole. But here's one: microgreens, edible hemp leaf products intended for human consumption that are derived from a hemp plant and grown from seeds that do not exceed the total THC threshold. Good luck enforcing that. And that is a plant that does not enter the stream of commerce because it's for research. Grown for the use of viable seed produced, grown for the viable seed of the plant produced solely for the production or manufacture of any material described in subparagraphs A through D. So they really do want seeds to be grown. And now they have this new term of art, hemp-derived cannabinoid products. And so a hemp-derived cannabinoid product is any intermediate or final product. So this whole while in processing thing, gone. contains cannabinoids in any form and intended for human or animal, because the CBD is for pets too. I've seen that on the internet, by any means of application. They are trying to now be really, really broad. Congressional intent is obvious. And if you read the congressional record of 2018, and then if you read the new definition of hemp in 2025, they don't want hemp to be the psychoactive version of the cannabis plant. That will still be marijuana. We need to get rid of that name. Application or administration, such as inhalation, ingestion, or topical application. Your vapes, your pre-rolls, your gummies, or your salves and balms. The term intermediate hemp-derived cannabinoid product means a hemp-derived cannabinoid product which is not yet in its final form. So they really are going after the processors here, like saying that just because you're making a product doesn't mean you can go hot. It's still going to have the same amount of regulations. And so it really gets back to, well, what genetics can we even use to create a CBD soda or a CBD balm or a CBD gummy? That's going to be really interesting, because you can't, once you go hot, like you can't remediate the THC. There's no way that there's nothing in here about remediating THC. You just can't have it. The term container. And so that 0.4 milligrams, they also have now defined a container. And that is the innermost wrapping, packaging, or vessel in direct contact with the final hemp-derived cannabinoid product, in which the final hemp-derived cannabinoid product is enclosed for retail sale to consumers, such as a jar, bottle, bag, packet, can, carton, or cartridge. Oh, and so does that mean you can't do a 6-pack of these drinks anymore? So you go to your liquor store and they typically come in 4-packs. Sometimes you see them in 6 or 12 packs. And would that be considered a container then? And so that whole 12-pack can only have 0.4 milligrams. Or would you label each can for individual retail sale? But then are you able to group them together? A little unclear on that. Means the innermost wrapping, packaging. Well, if it's the innermost wrapping and packaging, then they say such as bottle, bag, packet, carton, or cartridge. I guess then you would be all right, because you could say, well, sure, it's in a carton of 4, but its innermost vessel that is for retail sale is one of those 4 cans. Still, if each one of those 4 cans only has 0.4 milligrams of THC, the consumer is not buying it for its THC content. And container excludes bulk shipping containers or outer wrappings that are not essential for the final retail delivery or sale to the end consumer. So like if you are doing a pallet of these and shipping them, that doesn't include container, because that final retail delivery or sale to the end consumer, when you buy the 4-pack or the 6-pack, that might mean the container. And so now your whole 4-pack again has to have the 0.4 milligrams. Such terms does not include a drug that is subject to an application for approval under subsection, and then they reference the FDCA, which is interesting. These hemp-derived cannabinoid products will no longer be considered a drug, which means that it may now be in compliance with the FDCA. It's been very interesting to watch all these beverage companies try to comply with the FDCA's labeling requirements, but then what's inside the container is a drug that has been placed into the chain of commerce for food. And so it's a misbranded drug or maybe an adulterated food. That should not apply anymore. So that's good, but it really would just be CBD only beverages. And then we get to this whole 90 days in the enactment of this act. The FDA shall, in consultation with other relevant federal agencies, I wonder if that's where HHS comes in again. Now they're going to list all known cannabinoids that are able to be naturally produced by the plant. That's a big list. I don't know them all. There's probably dozens. There's over 100 of these organic compounds. How many of them are cannabinoids? I'm not sure, but CBG, CBD, THC, many, many more. Like there's a lot of THCV talk out there and other lesser cannabinoids that are definitely naturally produced by the plant. For example, even Delta 8, but it's in a trace amount. So that's going to be a very interesting list. Stay tuned to Cannabis Legalization News' channel. Give this video a like. and subscribe. You click the bell. You'll get notice when we do the video on that in about 90 days. And then a list of all other known cannabinoids with similar effects to tetrahydrocannabinol class cannabinoids. And so they have these tetrahydrocannabinols that they've defined, and now they're going to have these classes created by the FDA. And I think that gets back into the definitional, because at the top, again, we can go to the definitional of it. That's the end of it. So they have all these other cannabinoids that the FDA is going to be finding. And then, of course, any additional information and specificity about the term container as defined in paragraph 3C. Well, that's good. So the FDA might be able to save the 4-pack of CBD seltzers with that little tack on there. And then we're into 782. It's a different section. But this is a great time to go back up to the top, because at the end here, they've now really delved into what THC or tetrahydrocannabinols will mean. And that's relevant to the definition that they've changed, because it's not just delta 9 THC anymore. It's these total tetrahydrocannabinols concentration. The FDA is going to find that out in the course of the next 90 days. Now we go back to this effective 365 days from November 12th, so November 11th, 2026. What happens between now and then? Election in November, primaries. Now, with all the gerrymandering going on in Congress, they still have primaries. And then they still have their general elections to get through. And then there's a guy named Epstein, somebody named Epstein, who may spring about and create a kerfluffle in Congress. And then nobody has health care. And so healthcare didn't get answered in the shutdown. Hemp got banned. The Epstein files haven't come out, but the 218th person has been sworn in. So that has gone to a vote in the House, and you might see the full Epstein file come out. And that might be very distracting from changing these definitions of hemp. Moreover, it hadn't changed in 7 years. And the industry was so inconsequential to America that they just shut it down. All of these factors don't give me a lot of confidence that the 365 days is going to pass and something's going to come along and save it. Let's do the 90 days into the future. Okay, now we're like square into the primary election cycle. Nothing's going to get done really over the next 90 days because they're going to all wait for the FDA. Then we're going to have the FDA's results, and then we'll have like a full definition of what hemp really means. The Senate voted, it was like 3 out of 4 senators voted to keep this in. It wasn't even allowed to be debated on the House floor. I don't know of any bill pending. The States Act might help save it, but that might not get done before the midterms. Schedule 3 might not happen before the midterms. It may. The Epstein files come out, Donald Trump's named, he wants to get the news cycle to move on, he moves it to Schedule 3. We'll see. I know that this is not good by any stripe of the imagination. If you have any questions and you made it this far, thanks so much. I'm Attorney Tom Howard. Been doing this for years. We'll continue to do it. Hope to see you on Sundays when we have our podcast, Cannabis Legalization News. If you have any other questions or videos you want me to do, leave them in the comments while you're down there. Click like, click subscribe, and tune in to the next one.